A little old-fashioned, but that's all right. Well, I suppose
Joy Villa exploded in popularity overnight because of that dress that she is wearing, the Make America Great Again dress on the Grammys red carpet. It is the most talked about moment from music's biggest night of the year. Singer Joy Villa, she is under attack for wearing that Make America Great Again dress.
remember their faces.
When the design is supposed to come
on.
Joy Villa dares to be different. You know, I hear all these people at the Grammys saying Laverne Cox comes out, the transgender goddess. She comes out and makes her big point about the Supreme Court case in the spring, and everybody uses words like courage. They throw courage around like it's nothing. That's so courageous for you to be taking a stand against Donald Trump. It's so courageous that you should speak out. It's so courageous for a transgender kid to refuse to use the bathroom of his biological gender. It's so courageous. You know what courageous is? A woman to come into the Grammy Awards in a Make America Great Again dress. That's courage. You're in a Daniel going into the lion's den. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised they didn't stone her last night. I'm surprised someone didn't escort her out of there. Does anyone know where her seat was? I avoided most of the Grammy Awards because it's just not my thing. So I dipped in and out of the Grammy Awards, but oh my God, it was like, there were a few things that I saw in the aftermath that ended up being good, like the Bruno Mars Prince tribute. That was pretty good. But most of the rest of it was just, oh my gosh. I don't know what they'd do without Adele. Adele's the only person, as far as I could tell, who can sing. There are a few little moments here and there, but how about when Metallica, this is what I did see when the Metallica microphone didn't work, and so the lead singer to Metallica is singing and nothing's coming out, and Lady Gaga doesn't have the presence of mind to go over to where he is and bring him over to her microphone until like three paragraphs into the song, whatever you want to say. But oh my gosh, that was painful. Even Metallica sounded... It was just not. This is. I don't know. Anyone? You guys watch it? Drew, James, anyone watch any of it? Or you guys just sitting around doing something else?
I was able to watch a little bit of it. I think the most bizarre part though was that Beyonce performance. I don't know if you had a chance to see.
Oh, I saw that. Which I said at the time. People are going to say this is the most beautiful avant-garde. Oh, Beyonce is really pushing the envelope. That's courageous, right?
Everything I saw was powerful. Powerful performance, yeah.
Well, I'm just glad they know that people who are pregnant have babies in their stomachs. And I'm just glad we're talking about babies, which is great. This is the part of it I like, motherhood. I'm going to look at the glass half full. I'm going to say motherhood was being celebrated.
It's very positive.
Motherhood. It's all motherhood, which I think is fantastic. I could have done without some of the odd interludes and, frankly, the yellow situation. I don't know what is that, afterbirth? What is that yellow thing coming out of her? I don't even know
if there was any singing in that performance. It was
talking.
It was mostly spoken word. Yeah,
it was talking. And was it a poem? I couldn't really follow what it was, but. Look, she's a gorgeous woman. She actually can sing really well. I mean, sometimes they don't even need to do the compression on her voice. She has a great voice, but it's about everything except the voice. That's why it's not for me anymore. It's about everything except the voice and the actual performance of actual musicians and actual. Writing and so forth. To me, it's about everything. It's about taking your pants off and standing in your underwear. It's about trashing Trump. It's about showing everybody that you can be pregnant and half naked. It's, okay, great. Now what? Now what's next? They're always on to the next thing. So what is next? I said this years ago, and I think when I wrote Shut Up and Sing, that they really won't have reached the low point in the culture, the absolute, depths of depravity until they have a live sex act on family hour programming. I mean, that's really where this is all going. And so there will be some iteration of that, worse than the bumping and grinding next to the leather-clad men, that's like a de rigueur for these award shows. But of course, they're going to trash conservatives. They're going to trash anyone who stands up for traditionalism. Of course, Trump, this is a check. And I'm like, I'm just bored. It's just boring. And even Adele at her concerts is getting political. I didn't watch her perform. Was she good? She must have been great. She has an unbelievable voice.
Well, she did have an error actually at some point that we could play for
let's
you.
Hear it.
Yeah.
Fast love in you. I know it's live TV. I'm sorry. I need to start again. I can't do it again like last year. I'm sorry for swearing and I'm sorry for starting again. Can we please start it again? I'm sorry. I can't mess this up for him. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry for swearing. I'm really sorry. Start again. I'm sorry, Ken.
Why do we have to swear?
You got it.
No, and this is courageous. But you see, they applaud the strangest thing. Applaud the underwear boys. They applaud the F-bomb. But this is where the culture is today. And this is where, by the way, this is where the protest movement, this is the fertile ground from which the protest movement gets a lot of its juice, too. I mean, the protest movement of today, I hate when they compare it to the Tea Party. Like, oh, please, it's the Tea Party. When did the Tea Party folks block a government official from entering a public school? Did that ever happen? When did the Tea Party movement actually prevent someone from speaking in 2009 or 2010? Never. As far as I could tell, people were not prevented from speaking. Now, did they have rallies? Yeah, they had rallies. I appeared at some of them. Did they have Saturday festivals? Yeah, they did. Did they talk about the Constitution, Obamacare? Oh, yeah. Talked about tax reform, some about immigration, although that really wasn't the focus of the Tea Party. But I love how they're comparing the nastiness of some of these protesters with the Tea Party movement, which they always would say would be profane or violent. It never was any of those things. But we actually have a men menacing a woman getting in and out of her car, her vehicle, at a public school with the aim of frightening her. That's the aim. The aim is not to educate. The aim is not to elevate. The aim is to intimidate. I sound like Jesse Jackson. That rhymes. That's a rhyming thing. But that's the aim of these. Do you think these people are protesters or are they criminals? See, I think they're criminals. If you prevent a government official from doing his or her duty at a public place, a public school, after they trash Betsy DeVos for not liking the public schools, she goes to the public schools and then they don't want her to speak. Isn't that a nice dynamic? Okay, you hate public schools and she goes to public schools, then you prevent her from speaking. Okay, you don't even make sense as a movement. But I think the left always does this. They always take it a step too far and they turn off regular folks. The regular people might even think, well, Trump has kind of missed some opportunities here. And I think they've distracted themselves on some issues. But even if they believe that about Trump's first 3 weeks, they don't like this Black mask movement coming into Berkeley. They don't like what they're seeing with the harassing of people like Ivanka Trump just going about her daily business, whether flying or going to an exercise class, or the boycotts. Everyone can boycott. It's within your right to boycott. But there's something extremely nasty about this. It's not, it would be one thing if the left was saying, okay, here's our alternative for making the economy better. This is why our argument is right and your argument is wrong. That's actually what the Tea Party did. When it came to Obama stuff, most of the Tea Party events were focused on repealing Obamacare and replacing it with a more market-based system. It was based on peeling back some of this government spending, the massive stimulus that Obama pushed through that we couldn't afford. TARP, it was about these very complicated pieces of legislation with an alternative understanding advanced. But with the left, it's just tear it down. It's tear down people, tear down Trump, in some cases tear down structures, smash windows, prevent people from speaking, and menacing those who have a different point of view. That's a very different dynamic than we had with the Tea Party movement. So I'd reject the attempts of the left to conflate both efforts. And I saw Morning Joe doing that all morning long. Oh, this reminds you of the Tea Party movement. Joe, I don't know how many Tea Party events you went to. I can't remember one that you went to, but I was actually at a lot of them, and it doesn't remind me of the Tea Party movement at all. At all. 855-40-LAURA. Joy Villa, her music sales have skyrocketed after she wore that Make America Great Again dress. The designer was actually on Fox and Friends, and we'll share some of those comments with you coming up on the show. But he was terrific. He's from the Philippines, and he said, look, I voted for Trump. He lives in San Diego. He said, I voted for Trump, and Joy's a big Trump person, but we just basically are about love and understanding and making the country better and bringing people together. He actually, on Fox and Friends, he actually kind of sounded like a liberal because it was peace, love, and understanding. Meanwhile, it's nasty, negativity, all the darkness is coming on the left-hand side. It's really interesting. 855-40-LAURA. We'll take a break. We'll talk about some of the Sunday show appearances. I was on Fox and Friends. Fox News Sunday, excuse me. I'll be on Fox and Friends tomorrow. Make sure to tune in for that. Did you watch any of the Grammy Awards? Do you care? I mean, I'd be surprised if the ratings are very high on the Grammy Awards. Maybe because of Adele, they'll be higher, but I'll be surprised. All right, we'll take a break. We'll get to some of the madness when we come back. Your calls, 855-40-LAURA.
Thank you so much. We can really use this kind of excitement at a pipeline protest, guys. Hashtag no dapple.
Okay, you want to keep your favorite podcasts like this one free to download, right? Well, then all you have to do is complete a short, anonymous survey, which takes less than 5 minutes. Just go to podcastone.com/mysurvey to answer the questions. You can also get there by clicking the banner at podcastone.com. If you've done this in the past, we'd like to thank you, but we do need you to do it again because we want to make sure we're giving you what you want. That's podcastone.com/mysurvey or click the banner at podcastone.com.
I just want to thank President Agent Orange for perpetuating all of the evil that you've been perpetuating throughout the United States.
At this particular point in history, our voices are needed more than ever.
Actually, no, they're not. Well, it'd be nice if, other than Adele and a few others, people could actually sing. That would be fabulous. 855-40-LAURA. Al Jarreau passed away over the weekend, age 76. What a talent he was. Again, not my type of music, but just a colossal musical talent. We'll miss him. Oh, wait. That brings us to Jennifer Lopez's deep thought of the day.
As Toni Morrison once said, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, and no room for fear. We do language. That is how civilizations heal.
Did Jennifer go to brainyquotes.com to get that before she went out on stage? Raise your hand if you're getting a little tired of the curtain dresses that people are wearing. You know what I mean? Like your cleavage is now a curtain. It's a curtain dress. So it's not a neckline so much as you're wearing two curtain panels. And for the life of me, I don't know what they must have double-sided tape or something to
Absolutely.
But they must get this tape from NASA. I mean, some of these people are fairly well endowed. I mean, that tape better not. You'll have another, what slip.
And not only that, but I don't know if you saw Jennifer Lopez's dress. Not only was she wearing curtains, but she decided to bunch a whole bunch of them up on her neck, and it looked like a huge ball next to her.
Oh, so it actually was like a. Maybe they should just go around with a curtain rod hanging above them, and we get it. You have breasts. We understand. And that what they don't understand is they're actually detracting from their real beauty. Well, their inner beauty, and a lot of them are beautiful women. Yeah, we get it. I mean, it's just when you show everything, you leave nothing to the imagination. There's no wonder. There's a real curiosity. It's like it's all hanging out, basically. And at first the Beyonce, it was almost like an illusion.
Yeah.
Watching it going,
like,
is she totally,
live? Is this a video?
Is she naked? I mean, is it one of those holograms? What is that? You know what I did over the weekend? I started watching an old, Chris told me to go look at it on YouTube. It was the old Grammy Award. I think it was from Grammy Awards from 1977 or 76, and the albums up for Album of the Year. Oh my God. It was, one was better than the next. I think Fleetwood Mac actually won for Rumors. I think it was 76, maybe 76. It was like one after the other, just phenomenal albums. And you're like, okay, well, that's never coming back.
Yeah, it actually focused on what the good albums
were,
not what
It
crazy
was like,
thing are the performers going to do next.
One after the other was, you couldn't imagine which album could be because all of them were phenomenal. And you had to settle on one, so Rumors won by Fleetwood Mac. I think it was 1977. Listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Let's go to Steve in Nevada. Oh, I love how everyone's complaining still about Ivanka wears her own clothing line. Well, what is she supposed to wear? Somebody else's clothing line? If you have a clothing line, now you can't wear it, apparently. Do you understand that? Except all the people in Hollywood can wear it. But Ivanka's actually doesn't have an official role at the White House, but she can't wear her own clothing line. She doesn't even run her own companies anymore. She's still the dominant owner, but she doesn't run her companies. But now that's a big complaint. They've been complaining about that since the Republican convention. Steve in Nevada, go ahead.
Hi, I was listening to you talk about Ivanka and her dress line, and it's an amazing thing. She makes these dresses for $150, and she wears them. And people complain. I would like to know what it costs the I'd like to know what it cost us, the taxpayers, to dress Michelle Obama for the last 8 years, and no one said a word about that.
No, I'm not sure if the taxpayers paid for Michelle Obama's clothes, but I mean, I just think of all the things that we have to focus on. What Ivanka wears that's a distraction meant to caricature the administration. And they have all their helpers at Saturday Night Live who are clever people, and they'll do clever skits. By the way, when I was watching the Melissa McCarthy Spicer skit, first of all, it was tired the second time around. It wasn't as funny. But I'm watching it, and I said, he's definitely wearing a pair of Ivanka shoes. I knew it. And sure enough, pulls the old gams up and is wearing it was kind of a leopard skin or something. I don't know. It was like a pattern, animal pattern shoe. But it's not as funny the second time around. It's still amusing, but it's not as funny. And imagine if they had done a skit about Valerie Jarrett or anyone with what they did to Kellyanne Conway, what the women's groups would be saying. You don't like women in positions of power. It's sexist. It's misogynist. Oh, they would have destroyed it on the left. They would have called it sexist for sure. 855-40-LAURA. We'll take a break. Dan Henninger, The Wall Street Journal, and your calls, as always. Remember, lifeset.com. A lot more there. Don't go away.
Please release me. Let me go.
Well, you purchased a timeshare, and I know you loved it. It was a great idea. That free cocktail party you got down in Baja, and got a free dinner out of it. You just had to go to that seminar. Next thing you know, you laid down like $45,000 for a timeshare that it's been a debacle. Well, resortrelease.com will help timeshare owners legally terminate their contracts and end all future payments, guaranteed. They have an A+ rating for the Better Business Bureau, and I like that. They just go to resortrelease.com or call them at 855-66-LAURA, 855-66-LAURA, and resortrelease.com. They give every customer a 100% guarantee that lets you legally and permanently walk away from that timeshare. If you don't get out of the contract, you don't pay a dime, period. So those maintenance fees are going up every year. You got to move now. Mention my name, Laura. You get $500 credit back when enrolling in their services. Again, call them, resortlease.com, or go to 855, call them 855-66-LAURA. That's 855-66-LAURA.
Stop divorce and fun black futures. Divorce and fun black futures. Stop divorce and This is so much like 2009. I can't even, you could not draw a closer parallel. And again, I say it time and time and time again.
Joe Scarborough saying these protests are just like the Tea Party. Well, I must have missed something. Protests are just like the Tea Party. Anti-Trump protests. They're shutting down Betsy DeVos at a public school. She can't even enter the school without being menaced. Following her into the car, blocking the car. Jason Chaffetz shows up at his town hall, shouting him down, screaming horrible things. Now, I was at a lot of town hall events for the Tea Party. I went to a lot of their rallies during the middle of the day. Families came, a lot of strollers. It was American flag, don't tread on me. But it was like policy. It was actually wonky. I thought it was too wonky at times. All about tax reform and Obamacare repeal, and it was very substantive. And it was very patriotic. A lot of flag waving. The people who want to conflate what we've been seeing, and the organization of this is all funded by the Soros-like acolytes all over the country. And the money's fanned out through various organizations. So it's not like George Soros is writing a direct check to Black Lives Matter. It doesn't work that way. But the money fans out through a bunch of different community activist groups, and it funds the making of the literature, the email lists, the robocalls. All of this is funded centrally. And it's all they can do. So it's called the resistance. And I say it's the resistance to thought, logic, the Constitution, history, and basic decency at some point. Sometimes the Tea Party could go a little overboard. We all do sometimes. That's fine. But the level of disgusting signage, screaming, shouting, and physical blocking of individuals, wanting to intimidate people from speaking, does not elevate the dialogue at all. And I'll tell you, if the Tea Party had done stuff like this, oh my God, Chris Matthews would be wetting himself in fury. Joining us now, poor Dan Henninger has to respond to that. Deputy editorial page director of the Wall Street Journal. We love him on Fox. We love stuff he writes as well. Let's focus on that. But Dan, great to talk to you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you, Laura. What can I add? I mean, really, to equate what these people are doing with the Tea Party, and it is so hilarious. It's such bad faith. I mean, I do remember those Tea Party meetings, and the original Tea Parties were about reducing the federal deficit and, getting control of federal spending. And you're right, they were wonky. I had a friend here who was actually in the Spanish consulate here. He was a cultural affairs attaché, and he told me, I've joined the New York Tea Party. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, it's very, very interesting. I'm learning all about the American Constitution. The meetings are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember... I remember at times, and I remember being on the air when MSNBC hosts were actually accusing Tea Party rallies of being dangerous places where people are running around with guns, and indeed some people who were legally authorized to carry a firearm on occasion did carry a firearm. There was never violence. There was never shoving, pushing. All the rallies I went to, no profanity. And most of this was like during the day on a Saturday down in Virginia countryside or out in out in Texas, or a bunch of events I went to. And these were just, they were I keep saying this, it was kind of wonky. It was not, there was not this horrific engaging in profanity and stopping other people from speaking. Nothing in my mind is more un-American than stopping another individual from being able to speak in a public place. Yeah,
well, that's the exact point. The Tea Party was never about stopping people from speaking. The left, it's not 2009 all over again, it's 1968 all over again. This is all about using mob actions to suppress speech, to suppress ideas with which you disagree. There's a theory behind this, Laura. You and I know what that theory is. It was initiated by a now obscure German sociologist named Herbert Marcuse, and the idea is that tolerating ideas that you find intolerant is immoral, and so you are obligated to shout them down and prevent them from emerging. And the left's been doing that, since 1968, and that whole wheel has come around again. I mean, the spectacle of a group shouting at Betsy DeVos last Friday, shame, 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 as she was simply trying to enter a Washington, D.C. public school, is that ethos all over again. And, you really got to, I have to ask myself, Laura, is there an upside for the Democratic Party? It is so pathetic to see Chuck Schumer literally becoming one of them and talking as though the other side's ideas aren't worthy of any consideration, signing up for #mark the resistance. Is this what the Democratic Party has come to? Kind of looks like it.
Well, let's talk about what is happening inside the West Wing, because I began to speak about this to the extent that I could yesterday on Fox News Sunday. But while we see what the, quote, resistance is trying to do, to demonize, isolate, and intimidate on the left, on the other hand, at the West Wing, I believe that they're not operating in the most effective manner. And everyone knows that I've known Steve Miller and Bannon for a long time, and I have an enormous amount of respect for all of them. But to me, there have been just lots of shiny objects that are being chased in this narrative that aren't really the reasons that people turned out in such large numbers in Michigan and Wisconsin to support Donald Trump, whether it's the Ivanka clothing line side issue, or the number of people showing up at rallies, or even the voter fraud issue, which, again, I'm not saying it's not an important issue, but it just allows the left to caricature the conservatives and the administration in a way that I think ends up hurting the other big issues that matter. Am I making sense here in how I'm describing it?
No, you're making sense to me, Laura, because that's what I keep trying to argue to people, which is that, look, Donald Trump did win the election, and he won the electoral vote, and a lot of people clearly voted for Trump for several reasons. One was that they wanted to, this has been clearly expressed in exit polls. One, they wanted to replace Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. And the second one was that they wanted to put in place the policies on which Donald Trump was campaigning, whether they related to tax reform, regulatory reform, infrastructure, immigration, and the rest of it. In other words, all those voters looked past a lot of the antics that were taking place around Mr. Trump himself, because they knew something larger was at stake. And those things, I would assume, are eventually going to start pressing themselves on the White House itself. They have eventually got to introduce legislation in the four areas I just mentioned. Committees will have to take them up. Politics is going to descend on the White House, and hopefully we can get away from a political context in which all we're talking about is the president's tweets all the time, because it's really unbalanced, I think, the president's agenda.
We're talking to Dan Henninger of the Wall Street Journal here on the Laura Ingraham Show, and the administration sent its domestic policy advisor, who's 31, is a young guy, who was a really smart in how he advised Sessions for the last few years on a number of things. But the left is seeking to take his words and his comments, and again, I'm talking about how they sell this to the public, and then use that to undermine the administration.
Do you feel like you and your staff there that you're in control of events at the White House?
I think to say that we're in control would be a substantial understatement. We have equal branches of government in this country. The judiciary is not supreme. There's no such thing as judicial supremacy. What the judges did, both at the ninth and at the district level, was to take power for themselves that belonged squarely in the hands of the President of the United States.
What is your take on how the substantive arguments are being made by the administration. I'm Raymond Arroyo's with me, and the two of us have done some media training for folks over the years, and I think a lot of this is in the presentation, and it's someone who's young. I mean, he's a young guy. Never really done this before. He was a behind-the-scenes person. I was thinking, like, when you talk about immigration, there's lots of positives that come from immigration, and we can talk about that and say, look, but we're going to be safer, and it's going to be good. People I know are upset and worried. You shouldn't be. If you're not committing serious crimes in the United States and evading or ignoring your deportation orders, and you've been deported, you keep coming back, that's going to be a problem. But for most people, they're going to find the country safer, and it's going to be a better deal for most Americans. I just think there's a way to say this that is not quite as, it's, I don't know, robotic, but it's something. I think it just needs some media training or something. I don't know.
Well, it's essentially defensive. That's the problem. The White House finds itself constantly on defense and constantly arguing over a discussion agenda that has been set by the media and the other side. That was the problem with the executive order on immigration. It just fell out there, and within 24 hours, the media narrative had been set. And so they ended up playing constant catch-up, which got harder and harder, and God knows made more difficult by these court decisions. You do want to be setting the agenda. You want to be setting the context, and certainly with that order, if they had themselves vetted it internally, there was a whole series of defensible ideas that an informed press secretary or staff attorneys could have sat down and explained in detail to the press what we're doing and what we're not doing. They would have had to respond to that. Instead, you have a situation where the White House is responding, trying to prove negatives and trying to respond to anecdotal sob stories and the like. You just cannot be on the defensive on that scale if you are the White House. I mean, we've seen other White Houses undone that way. It just gets really, really difficult to turn that sort of thing around, and they got to find a way to do it.
Now, do you think Chris Ruddy and others were talking about Priebus, that you need a stronger chief of staff? Is that the problem, or what's going on? I mean, I have no idea, and it's easier to be on the outside and kind of say, oh, we should do this. Believe me, I understand it's hard when you're in that mix, but it seems like there are a lot of fiefdoms in the West Wing. Everybody has a fiefdom, and it's not all for one for all, or so. I can't kind of figure it out, but it's curious in 3 weeks that this is kind of where they are, and maybe some step back and maybe not do a daily briefing every day. You don't need to.
Yeah, maybe the daily briefing. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Laura. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and most of them really strong supporters of the Trump presidency, and very strong supporters, and almost invariably the same thing comes up. They wish the president would back off on the tweeting. This is not to say it would ever stop completely, but the sort of inflammatory tweets that come between the more serious ones, most of the people I talk to just wish he would stop doing that, because it just so unbalances it. It's red meat to the media.
Yeah, and they just go with it.
To the opposition, and they just go with it when we should be talking about so many other more important things that we're going to need to get done here in the next 6 months.
Tax reform, Obamacare. And before we let you go, we're running way late, but like 20 seconds. But now that the protesters, the resistance is all focused on Obamacare, wouldn't this have been avoided if they had a replacement for Obamacare and they had messaged that and rolled that out in the first week, instead of now giving everyone all this time to organize against them, and now everyone's back on their heels again?
Yeah, well, it was something of a problem that the Democrats slow-rolled Tom Price's nomination at HHS. You need a secretary there to work with, and there's probably some internal dissent inside the House Republicans over which direction they want to go to now. But Price is there. Seema Verma, this wonderful woman that Mike Pence brought in from Indiana to run Medicaid, Medicare, they're both in place now, so there's no real reason to not commence getting replace the Obamacare reforms put in motion.
Dan Henninger, we love having you on. Thank you so much. Words to the wise for folks listening. We have a lot of people listening in the White House. We appreciate it very much. We'll take a break, close out this hour. I'll be on Hannity tonight. Make sure to tune in. Fox and Friends tomorrow. Pop Zet was all over the Grammy Awards. Can't resist politics. Well, that's an understatement. Is that the title? Can't resist politics. No kidding. Best movies for Valentine's Day. What do you want to see with your sweetheart? Got some good suggestions on Life Zet. Check it out.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
I'm curious about yesterday's ruling in the Ninth Circuit Court. Has it caused you to rethink your use of executive power, and how will you respond?
We are going to keep our country safe. We had a decision which we think we'll be very successful with. It shouldn't have taken this much time.
It doesn't focus on the areas that need to make us safe. Right. The three judges in the panel said they've shown no evidence that our safety is at risk or rather, they've shown no evidence that this executive order would make us safer.
It was interesting over the weekend that Jessica Vaughn, who does great research for the Center for Immigration Studies, actually went back and looked at those convicted terrorists from the Trump 7, as they're calling the countries that were listed in the travel ban. 72 individuals from the 7 Trump countries were arrested for terrorism since 9/11. Schumberger goes on and on. None of these people have done anything. Oh, okay. Well, 20 from Somalia, 19 from Yemen, 19 from Iraq, 7 from Syria, 4 from Iran, and 2 from Libya. And they calculated this looking at the report that they received, I guess they got it from the Senate and from Homeland Security. So they were involved in a number of different things, being recruited online, giving material assistance to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, others. There were a number of different ways that you can violate the anti-terror statutes, and these 72 individuals figured out how to do that since 9/11, which is probably part of the reason that Obama decided to make it more difficult for these people to come into the country from these countries without proper systems in place to do the type of background checks that need to be done. But I noticed that, as far as I could tell, none of the major hosts on any of the Sunday shows referenced this CIS report. Jake Tapper, I don't think, if I missed it, I apologize, but I don't think Jake Tapper mentioned it. I don't believe it was mentioned by Stephanopoulos. I don't think Chris Wallace mentioned it when he talked to Stephen Miller. I was surprised that Stephen Miller didn't mention it when he went on all these Sunday shows. He's the domestic policy advisor for the White House. How many of you watched any part of any Sunday show? Did you watch any of this stuff? I mean, I've got to say, I'm starting to tune it all out because I don't think most people watch this stuff. I don't think most people care. I think most people want the economy to get better. Most people want healthcare to be patient-centered. Clearly, the Obamacare exchanges are all collapsing. Your out-of-pocket expenses are going way up. Your choices in healthcare are going down. That all has to be fixed. Most people just want this stuff fixed. The constant bickering about side issues is just tedious and unhelpful. But a lot of it, and Raymond, you and I have talked about this over the years, so much of your message is in the way you present your message. And that's why Reagan, I mean, no one ever will be like Reagan, and Craig Shirley will say this all the time. So much of what Reagan did was he captured the narrative by being really serious when it was necessary to be really serious. But even when he was criticizing his opponents, I'm not talking about the Soviet Union, but just political opponents, there'd always be a little twinkle in his eye. It was like, I know something that you don't know, but I'm on your side. He had that ability to do that. And I think it's important that the folks going out there to represent the president, they also have to keep that in mind, I think. And
there's a winsomeness that comes. Look, if you believe you're on the winning side of the argument,
right,
and you have the answers, you should be confident and a little joyous about that.
Yeah.
there is a defensiveness that you see around the edges. And look, people can't appreciate the hot box
It's
these
hard.
people find themselves
They're
in.
working 18 hours
And
days
they're being
as well.
attacked from all sides, pop culture, the media, they're getting it from political opponents, and then you've got the Hill involved. So there are a lot of factors, I get it, that makes you edgy, that makes you a little probably quick on the draw, but, you know, a part of this is performance, part of this leadership is performance, and that means laying out a message that is both convincing, thoroughly vetted, thoroughly checked, thoroughly crafted, as well as winning and joyous around the edges. And that is what I think we need to see a little more of, that quality.
Well, I think that, again, when you're under the hot spotlight and you know people are being unfair, it is sometimes difficult to keep your
cool.
Yeah, you're cool.
Well, then, but look, the media is not like everyday life or even political life. The media is a battle that you can choose. You decide, I'm not going to go on every show, morning shows, radio call-ins, and, you know, the online blogger. I'm not going to do all of that. I'm going to do one broadcast today, just one, and it's going to be the exclusive, and that is going to blow up and go everywhere else. Everybody else can play that and talk around that, but prime yourself and prepare yourself for the one great interview rather than doing 10 or 4 or 5. Why submit yourself to that sort of
Why
gauntlet?
does Stephen Miller and the team behind him think it's good to go on 3 or 4 Sunday shows?
I would never have done that. I'd go on one show.
One
then
show.
It's special.
Choose it.
Now,
choose one show.
Sometimes you do that to hedge your bets. If I flame out over here, maybe I'll make the point here.
Yeah,
but you know,
he knows his stuff. He doesn't have
and
to
that's
do that.
my feeling is, if you know what you're talking about, if you're ready for the battle, just pick the one person you want to dance with. Do that. Find the fairest reporter you can who will give you a fair shot, and go there. You don't do the multiplicity of interviews. It only creates more opportunities for you
them
to
to
stumble.
skewer you, and that's what they're trying to do.
And the other thing, Stephen Miller, like poor Kellyanne Conway last week, you can't give these guys 25 minutes of your time. You give them 5 minutes. You give them 3 minutes. You don't do these unending interviews. Naturally, look, I'm in the media. I want people to sit on my show as long as possible, but it's not always in the best interest of the interview to do that.
Stephen Miller was on, again, he's a really smart guy. He was crucial in the resistance and the defeat, ultimately, of the immigration amnesty, the Gang of Eight. He was excellent. I mean, in the TPP stuff, unlike most people on Capitol Hill, he actually understood why TPA was critical to defeat, the Trade Promotion Authority, which was the precursor of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You needed to give the president the Trade Promotion Authority in order to even get to TPP. Again, thank God Trump won, but were it not for that, the TPP would have already been rammed through. But Miller was critical in that.
Well,
so he has a policy, he has an ability to discern the importance of policy and the stumbling blocks in policy making that most people at his age just can't do.
He was also fiercely loyal to Donald
Oh, my
Trump
God.
and at his side
Oh,
at
my
every
God.
event. You know, this is the guy who
Spoke.
would run and plug the computer into the teleprompter so Trump could do his speech, because he was writing the speech on the plane on the way over. So he was very involved in the campaign, and therefore I would imagine that garnered him a lot of support, and Trump will stand by him.
We have a, I guess this is a montage. Hard for me to tell from looking at the sheet, but I believe this is a montage of things that he said rather than the Q&A on this particular issue. Let's listen.
The 3 judges made a broad, overreaching statement. This is an ideological disagreement between those who believe we should have borders and should have controls, and those who believe there should be no borders and no controls. This is a judicial usurpation of power. The end result of this, though, is that our opponents, the media, and the whole world will soon see, as we begin to take further actions, that the powers of the president to protect our country are very substantial and will not be questioned. The president's powers in this area represent the apex of executive authority.
He went on to say the vast power of the presidency will not be questioned. And it was in that. You could hear it in that. I know what he is saying, and he in large part is right about, of course, the runaway courts, and he's spot on how wrong the Ninth Circuit was. He's absolutely right about that. But again, the way you present your positions is just as important as the substance, the underlying substance. And so the confidence that you have from being correct can't come across as arrogant. It can't come across, and he's not an arrogant person. That's the he's not arrogant when you spend time. Stephen's a terrific guy. This is just like an older person giving younger person advice. And I've been through the ringer myself in the media. I used when I look back on my old tapes and video, because I have VHS, I was so over the top. Like in the first couple of years in TV, I didn't let people finish. I was a little too hot on TV. I mean, hot, under the collar a little bit. And you're not as persuasive as you are when you say, "Look, this is how we see it." And I think when all is said and done, the country will understand why this was so important to do and to get right. We will get it right. The president's considering all his positions, but I know there's a lot of people who disagree with us, and I respect their position. But I believe in the end, the country's going to be safer, and American workers are actually going to like the fact that they have a little more money in their pocket. That's going to be a good thing. I think there's a way to say it and message it that's just a lot more positive. And because you already have the base, they're already with you. Now it's time to build, right? Raymond, you want to build this movement out. And so you want to give people a reason to say, "Oh, I like how he did that. I like how he said that."
Well, and when you know the country is gun shy, when you know the country is worried, rightly or wrongly. Look, there's been a lot of hot reporting on this president, over the top stuff. He's doing this, he's doing that, he's involved with this leader and that leader, he's undermining American interests. You've got to realize that is the atmosphere that you walk into. So your job is to reassure and make your point. But that's a two-part process. It's not just one. It's not just steamrolling. Because if you steamroll, you're actually giving credence to the narrative that you're trying to talk away and trying to get away from.
Yeah.
That doesn't help your cause in the end.
855-40
It's
Laura.
tonal. This
it's
is
a little tonality.
Tonal thing.
Yeah, but
look, on the substance, he's got it. I mean, he understands the facts. He's got the policy. But there are times where you need a gentle touch.
A little bit.
People don't understand policy anyway. They're not looking for policy exegesis. They're looking for reassurance that all is well, that you're abiding by the law, and that you're fulfilling your promises to me. That's all they're looking for. It's simple.
And then of course Joe Scarborough goes way overboard, smashing Miller. And he was equating Miller's performance yesterday in the various shows, which Donald Trump praised in his Twitter, with another famous four-show appearance.
You go into your president's office, that one, and you look on the walls, and there are all these pictures of Andrew Jackson and books of Andrew. He talked about judicial independence. He talked about the importance of the judiciary. You really need to go back and read the Constitution. And seriously, the White House has got to stop embarrassing themselves by putting this guy out. You got tons of phone calls.
Worst?
I had people working me. Oh, wasn't Miller great? No, he was that is the worst performance of anybody. That made Susan Rice the Sunday after Benghazi look smooth.
Yeah, the ending is the part we were focused on. It's Susan Rice. I don't think so. Susan Rice was lying, going out and lying after 4 Americans were killed in Benghazi. She was sent out to lie. You can argue that they shouldn't talk about voter fraud, but we don't have 4 dead Americans and an administration spinning a wild tale on the Sunday shows. 855-40 Laura. How much of the criticism of the West Wing is fair? We even had a Trump friend, Chris Ruddy, who's a friend of mine as well, editor of Newsmax. He went on reliable sources on CNN, and he was hitting Reince Priebus. It seems like it's 3 weeks in, and the knives are out for everybody. Poor Flynn is on the chopping blocks, then you got Reince. Miller is, then the Kellyanne they're going after. I mean, my goodness. At some point, you just take a breath. Maybe, Raymond? Take a breath, let it out, and just go back to the ways that are winning ways, the issues that you ran on, that you win on every time. It's going to take some time to get this right, but it can be done. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA.
I guess it's just one man's problem.
I think the problem is not so much him, it's the White House. The White House is showing not the amount of order that we need to see. I think there's a lot of weakness coming out of the Chief of Staff. I think Reince Priebus, good guy, well-intentioned, but he clearly doesn't know how the federal agencies work. He doesn't have a really good system. He doesn't know how the communications flow.
That's Chris Ruddy from Newsmax. Everybody's hitting everyone. But Chris Ruddy's hitting Reince. I don't know if Reince is the problem. I don't know if Reince Priebus. I don't know about that. You want a chief of staff who has authority. That's for sure. I have no idea. We're just speculating. It's kind of fun to speculate on a Monday, but it could be. Clearly something's not working. Right? Clearly something's not working. When you have the long knives out for, like, there's the only two people whose jobs, I think at this point, three people whose jobs seem like they're pretty much set, or not jobs, but role, is Ivanka, Jared Kushner, and Steve Bannon. Those three. I predict Bannon will be there till the last dog dies. Bannon is a survivor. I don't think Bannon's going anywhere. The death mask, no death mask on Saturday Night Live. I think he's not going anywhere. But as far as I can tell, with the long knives that are out, he's smart never to go on TV, by the way, Bannon. These other people think going on TV is fun. You better know how to do TV if you're going to go on TV. Better know it. You better know it really well. But poor old, and then Sean Spicer, they didn't put him out. They didn't put him out on the Sunday shows. They only put Miller out. Why is that? Why is Omarosa? Let me get her out there. I think now you get the sense that they're putting people out there just to say, okay, let's try this one. Let's see if he can survive the weekend. Let's see if he gets a caricature on Saturday Night Live. 10-1, Miller's going to be, there's going to be someone doing Miller next week. Do you disagree, Raymond?
No, I think it's
Miller is set up for a Saturday Night Live next Saturday. If Saturday Night Live wants to really dig into the personnel, we're going to talk to the Missouri governor. Eric Greitens is going to join us. He's a rising star in the GOP. And Missouri, critical state moving forward for this country as the left is gearing up the resistance. Hashtag the resistance. And they're organized. Whether they can turn that into regular working class people thinking they're competent to govern is another thing. But they have their email lists, they have their texts going, and they're going to get people to show up at every town hall to try to intimidate the Republicans. The question is, what do the Republicans do now?
Hey, it's Jordan Harbinger. For the last 10 years, I've successfully helped people build their self-confidence with my Art of Charm podcast. And now, along with Art of Charm, I'm hosting a new show. It's Podcast One's latest program, The Forbes List. On the show, we talk to the Forbes editors that curate their famous and respected lists, like self-made richest people, billionaires, and highest-paid athletes. We'll get behind-the-scenes insight and information that doesn't make the print cut. It launches this week, on February 16th. So please subscribe on iTunes to the Forbes List, and don't forget to rate us, review, and share.
I think that his intent is also to do things that can help the business environment in America, which to me, the people hurting most are working class and poor people. We need a vibrant economy to get jobs going again.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. That was Bob Kraft, who was having dinner with Trump in Mar-a-Lago on Saturday night. Maybe it was Friday night. I think it was Friday night. And, of course, the owner of the New England Patriots. They had the big parade last week, the victory parade for the Patriots. 4 Patriots now, 4 or 5, say they're not showing up to meet Trump, by the way. But Bob Kraft's making the right point. Just people want an economy that is strong and vibrant. They want to see their wages rising. They want the government to work for the people. Focus on that, and things are going to be better. I mean, he's absolutely right. Joining us now, and I think when we look back on this first somewhat tumultuous 3 weeks in the Trump administration, we're actually going to, I think we're going to wish that they had stayed on these core topics more intently. And I think that all these side issues, voter fraud, I mean, again, I'm not saying voter fraud's not important, but the side issues and so forth, Ivanka's clothing line.
Well, and now Mike Flynn, the Wall Street
Flynn.
journalist, just dropped a piece, and it's Mike Flynn's position as national security advisor grows tenuous in White House. But when you read the body of the piece itself, it says U.S. intelligence regularly monitors conversations with Russian intelligence, Russian diplomats. The transcripts of the conversations don't show Mr. Flynn made any sort of promise to lift the sanctions once Trump took office, the officials said. Rather, they show Flynn making more general comments about relations between the two countries.
They're trying to destroy
improving under
Mike Flynn.
Trump.
They're trying to destroy Mike Flynn. And let me tell you why. Mike Flynn is much closer to Donald Trump's view of foreign policy than he is to the neoconservatives. Mike Flynn doesn't believe we should willy-nilly get engaged in all these Middle Eastern conflicts. I think he has a much more judicious approach to foreign policy and national security than others. And I think the long knives out for him is not a good sign. But you see how the media ran with this yesterday?
Yep.
You see how the media ran with this? But it seems like inside they want to get rid of him. Seems like someone's inside wants to get rid of him. They want to go back to this neoconservative foreign policy, remaking the world in our image, go rush back into Syria with troops, whatever. They never wanted Mike Flynn in. And I'm telling you, the people who don't want him in are the very people who Donald Trump defeated in election, in primary after primary after primary. The neoconservatives want their person in as national security advisor. That is what's going on. I don't like what they're doing to Flynn. I don't like how they're mischaracterizing that call. And the media are so lazy with how they're reporting this. 855-40-LAURA. We have a lot to get to. Let's go to Governor Eric Greitens. He's the 56th governor of Missouri. He's one of the youngest governors in the United States, and he is smartly pushing the right to work in Missouri, which is what everyone from Scott Walker, so many people over the years have discovered, that when you become a right to work state, guess what? It's better for your workers. It's better for your people. And Governor Greitens joins us now. Governor, good to talk to you.
Laura, great to be on with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about this right to work push in your state. I think if it works out the way it's worked in other states across this country now, what is it? 28 states are right to work states. It's going to be
right.
Good.
That's right. 28 states.
So how did this? You're only 42 years old. You're a young guy. The unions obviously hate right to work because they want to be able to tell their members what to do and pay their dues when they're supposed to pay them, regardless of what's done with those dues. But how did you get to this point so early in your governorship?
Well, look, we were sent here by the people of Missouri to fight for them, and the mission was really clear. It was more jobs and bigger paychecks for the people of the state of Missouri. And you're exactly right, Laura. I'm a Navy SEAL, conservative outsider, had never been involved in politics before.
So awesome.
But we let everybody know we're coming to bring the fight to the special interests, and we signed right to work, and it was a great victory for Missouri families who need jobs. Passing right to work, just like you said, it sent a really clear message that the people of Missouri are ready to work and that the state of Missouri is open for business.
Well, I think that average families in the United States who, working class people, maybe they're middle class, they want to be upper middle class. I think a lot of folks are tuning out what they're hearing in the media and Hollywood and, even some of the comedians, Saturday Night Live. It keeps the nation's capital in New York all at Twitter. But I think most people are just like, are we going to get we're going to get this economy going. And if that happens, my family's going to be a lot better off. We'll probably have fewer people on opiates, have fewer people addicted to drugs. And if we can do that, shore up this border and make sure people coming into the country for the right reason, I think good stuff's going to happen.
Well, you are exactly right, Laura. And, we did something that a lot of politicians don't do. We went out to sign the bill in the state of Missouri. We went down to Springfield, Missouri to sign one copy. We went to Poplar Bluff, Missouri to sign the other copy. And we went to factories. We went to one factory that had been closed down to get this message out really clearly. And you're exactly right that people are tuning out a lot of what the liberal media is talking about. They know the facts, right? The facts are with right to work from 1995 to 2015. The top 5 fastest growing states in the country for jobs were all right to work. And people in right-to-work states were earning more than people in the state of Missouri. So we made our message very clear, and we went out and we brought that message to the people of Missouri. They sent me here on a mission, and we wanted to let them know we're up here. And it's not just, special interest bosses who were willing to fight. On the very first day in office, minutes after we took the oath, Laura, we were up here at my desk, and I signed an executive order that banned all gifts from lobbyists to anybody in the executive branch. We also slammed shut the revolving door between the executive branch and lobbyists, and now we're taking that message saying that the legislature here in Missouri needs to do the same thing. People want us to fight for them, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
We're talking to the governor of the great state of Missouri, Eric Greitens. And Eric, I'm saying Eric because you're so young, but Governor Greitens, let's talk about the priorities of the administration and as they affect the governors. So many Republican governors across the country. The National Governors Association, I know you have your meeting and you share your points of view with members of the administration regularly. But on the issue of Obamacare, it seems that there have been there's a mass push against repealing and replacing Obamacare on the left. And it seems that some Republicans are also getting cold feet from a gubernatorial perspective, from Missouri in particular. What do you see as most important to do on the health care front?
Laura, I actually went up and met with Vice President Pence just days after the inauguration exactly to talk about how Obamacare is hurting the state of Missouri. I mean, it is crushing us here in the state of Missouri. We've got a major budget crisis over the course of the next 18 months, $700 million that politicians were planning to spend that we just don't have in our bank account. And a big part of that reason is because of the exploding costs in health care driven by Obamacare. It's hurting families all over the state of Missouri. And people are so sick of all of the lies. Obama said if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That turned out not to be true.
So what should the administration do, Governor? We know it's not popular in many circles in your state, but there is word now that they might not really get to it until the end of the year or into next year. Are the natives going to be restless if the Republican Party does not get this done and do it right?
I think we have got to get this done, and I think we've got to get it done now. And I'm telling you, from my perspective here in the state of Missouri, people sent us to fight against Obamacare. They sent us to fight against politics as usual. They were very clear. They want us to fight for them. They're expecting us to make sure that we're getting results for their families. And I've been very clear. We have got to attack this problem now, and I'm looking forward to working with Vice President Pence, this entire administration, to make sure that we can get that done.
Well, I think that when people become intimidated from the protests and they're seeing these protests break out all over the country, they've had time to organize. The left has had time to organize against the repeal of Obamacare, despite the fact that the Republicans, since Obamacare was passed, really have been on the right, both substantive and public opinion side of the question. So you lose your footing on the PR side here, and then you lose your footing on the substantive side. Then you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball. So they've had a long time to settle on one repeal and replace idea. And I'm a little surprised that Trump's in there for 3 weeks, and now we're hearing, maybe the end of the year. Like, what? That better not happen.
I got to tell you, the thing that people are loving in the state of Missouri, and I think that we have to do this as conservatives, we have to do this as Republicans. The thing that shocked everybody in the state of Missouri is that, I came in as a Navy SEAL, as an outsider, and we're doing exactly what we told people that we were going to do. And one of the things that we told people that we were going to do is that we have got to provide relief from this terrible tragedy that Obamacare has inflicted on so many families across the state of Missouri. So I think you're exactly right. We've got to stick to our guns, and we have to fight for people.
Well, Governor Greitens, we really appreciate you joining us. And I hope the administration, we're going to write this up on LifeZet, your comments on this. I hope they're listening on Capitol Hill. They can't be intimidated. They cannot be intimidated from these protests. They have to, with a smile and determination and some toughness, say, this is what we were elected to do. We have a mandate to do this. We're doing it. Period.
That's right. That's exactly right. We have to march forward and remember the people sent us here to fight for them, and that's what they're looking for.
And thank you for your service to this country as a former Navy SEAL, and even the Bronze Star, of course, and 7 other military awards. We really appreciate it. Governor, for a man of your age, very wise, but that's because you come from the U.S. military, so we really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Great to be on with you, Laura. Look forward to talking again soon.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. We'll take a break, close out this hour on the Laura Ingraham Show. Do you agree that repeal and replace must happen soon? Do not delay this. Come up with an alternative. Get the right messaging and the right communications behind it, and then push this thing through. Do you agree? Sooner the better. Don't go away.
Too much. You do all the living while I do all the giving. Gonna love you too much.
Will Wilder. You can order the second volume in the Will Wilder series online at RaymondArroyo.com. It comes out in a few weeks, but if you order early, you get a Will Wilder very cool. Can I keep this for my kids?
You can keep that.
Okay, you get a very cool Will Wilder bookmark, and you can get a signed book plate,
Correct.
right? If you order now.
Yes.
Okay, and it's Will Wilder, The Lost Staff of Wonders. I love it. It's scary sounding.
It's fun.
The
Lost
Staff of Wonders.
No, you're a voiceover artist. I'm going to have to hire you to do the trailer.
Will Wilder, The Lost Staff of Wonders. Oh, this is scaring me, though. But my kids love it. Okay,
You're
Nico.
scaring me.
Of course, Nico loves Nico's like, when he sees the cover of this, because we have the big galley from you. So we see the cover, and Nico said, is the monster on the cover with the fire in his mouth hurt? He keeps focusing on why? How did he get the fire going into the mouth of the monster? Anyway, Raymond, this is going to be awesome.
Oh no! Tell him the monster's going to be hurting really bad when Will's
At
finished
the end,
with
the
him.
monster's good. So it's cool. So you can, if you order early, you get
a fun series
you get
for
the
young
book.
readers.
Yeah, you get the book plate, and this is encouraging readers across the country at a young age to get engaged in both history, some spiritual aspect to this. And antiquities and adventure, mystery, but it's really a family. It's about a family.
Well, it's a family adventure, and what I love about it is it immerses kids in history, and they don't know they're being immersed in history because they're loving the read. They love the story.
With shades of Indiana Jones and Percy Jackson, Will Wilder's antics are sure to appeal to middle grade readers looking for the next great adventure. Booklist.
Yes, Booklist.
You got a good review from Booklist.
Nice review.
They don't like my books as much. Man, they like yours. What do you? I gotta take some advice from you and how I do this. By the way, the immigration sob stories coming out of the mainstream media are now so bad. Now there's sob stories about migrants who are deciding to settle in Mexico from Honduras. They really want to come to the United States or Canada, but they're being welcomed in Mexico, and they're wearing extra sweaters because it's cold in the winter. Well, we keep our thermostat at like 62. My kids are always wearing sweaters. I mean, honestly. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. But the sob stories. How about the sob stories about the American workers who can't get work?